WCON 1170 Radio and Starvision Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by J.W. Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The name of the show is We Should Know. Nicole, thank you for that introduction each and every week you give us. I want to thank folks for talking to us and telling us what you thought about our show last week, talking about tractor pools and the National Tractor Pool Association and North Carolina Tractor Pool Association, June 14 and 15 in Harrells, North Carolina. George McGill was with us, and of course Wayne Lewis with the North Carolina Tractor Pool Association was with us. We had a little bit of technical difficulty on Tuesday, and a number of folks, actually a huge number of folks, let us know about that. We're still working on some connectivity issues with the radio station. Hopefully all those things are being worked out and the network deal taken care of there. The other thing I want to give a shout out is I've had a lot of folks recently, I hadn't thought about this audience of folks listening to us, but apparently when our show airs on Tuesday, 2:30 to 3:30, there's a lot of moms and grandmoms picking up kids at school, and on their radio in the car they're listening to us. So we appreciate you listening to us on Tuesday, 2:30 to 3:30, and keep us tuned in. We're excited today to have two folks with us, Jonathan Fussell and David Fussell. Guys, thank you for being here.
Thank you. We're honored to be here.
We'll start with either one of you. Tell us about David or Jonathan, whichever one of you wants to start. I'll see who the alpha male is here, I guess.
The oldest gets to go first.
Okay. So go right ahead. Tell us about
Dave
Fussell.
David. Grew up in the little town of Rose Hill. My father and mother, David and Ann Fussell, of course, were school teachers a long time ago, and I just so happened to, have a really good life as a kid. Worked really hard. My dad was a school teacher and a farmer all at the same time, so he taught me how to work a lot, and we grew pigs and corn and grapes, and eventually got into the wine business. And one of the things that Dad used to always love to do is wake me up early in the morning and say, "Let there be light," and turn that light switch on and bring out the water rag and dump my face in it. But went to East Carolina a little bit later on, and it took me a little while to graduate. I think I enjoyed myself a little too much there. Luckily, after school, met a wonderful girl named Angie Myrick, who is now Angie Myrick Fussell, and she's a pharmacist and works locally here in a bunch of little area independent drugstores. And we have a wonderful son named Grayson, and he's going to be a freshman this year, so he just took driver's ed.
Wow.
So we're excited about that. Of course, I'm very fortunate to work for our family business, Duplin Winery. Mm-hmm. Been at it my whole life, and because I'm the oldest, I've been there longer than he has. I know a little more than he does.
That's like undebatable, right?
That's right. But that, the winery is divided into several different segments. Mm-hmm. Dad liked to separate us so we wouldn't fight so much, right. And I sort of look after our plant, our grape growers, and our outside sales into some wonderful stores that carry us, like Walmart, Food Line, Harris Teeter, Kroger. I can't name all the good stores that represent us, and that's sort of what I'm supposed to look after. And probably could do a better job. At least my brother tells me I could many times. And I'm his oldest brother by 8 years.
There you go. So Jonathan, tell us about Jonathan.
Well, I guess I'm the baby of the family.
Well, we've established that
now. That's right. Of course, I grew up, went to school at Carolina and graduated and came back, and lucky enough, Dave and my dad gave me a job. Mm-hmm. And during that time I went to school, met my wife, Leah, mm-hmm. and we were lucky enough to have two wonderful children, Aiden and Cameron. So they both go to a local school here at Harrells. Mm-hmm. And so I take care of the retail, or what we call the visitor center of the winery, and we're lucky enough to have about 90-something thousand folks to come visit us a year, and so we appreciate everybody coming to see us.
Well, I want to thank both of you for being here. This is a subject I think a lot of folks have some kind of glancing view of what wineries are, of what winemaking is. But let's start out, if it's okay, and talk a little bit about the history of grapes and wine. And we know that it dates back to even the 1500s. There's literature, historical literature that dates back to the 1500s, and it talks about North Carolina. And the thing about the mother vine is an interesting story. So, David, I'm going to let you talk about that a little bit and just kind of fill us in on a little bit of the history and also the main #1 fruit of North Carolina. Let's talk about that.
That's right. Scuppernong.
Scuppernong. Scuppernong is the word.
Yeah, when the earlier settlers came over, they were driving down the Cape Fear River, and they saw all these wild grapes growing up in the trees, and they wrote back to the Queen of England and the King of France, and say, this is unbelievable. There's so many grapes here. This is it's a wonderful place to move to, and wine was such a part of their culture because the water, you couldn't drink the water because of the diseases and different things like that. So wine definitely was served back then in France and England and Europe, on a daily basis with every meal. So when they came over here, they noticed these Vitis rotundifolia grapes growing native, and they nicknamed them muscadine grapes after the muscat grape from Europe because it had a lot of sweetness and a lot of fruit, and they made some great little sweet wines that they would carry back and forth. And the mother vine actually was discovered on Roanoke Island in Manio, when
Sir Walter Raleigh?
Well, Sir Walter Raleigh and the Lost Colony, they came over and they found the Indians actually had planted a vineyard, and they were actually cultivating and growing grapes and making wines there on Roanoke Island. And they, of course, the history shows that there is one vine left, and it's called the mother vine, and they actually think that Virginia Dare may have actually eaten grapes off this still living grapevine.
We're talking 400 plus years old.
Oh yeah, 480 some odd years ago, and it's amazing that something has lasted that long and still thriving over there on Roanoke Island. Actually, the history is so wonderful that a group of senators and my father got together, and they got direct cuttings from this mother vine, and now we have a direct cutting vineyard, a vineyard made from direct cuts of this vine, and we make a little wine and sell it only in Rose Hill because we don't make a lot of it.
Right.
Actually, I think only about 80 out of 1,000 vines propagated and rooted.
Yeah.
So we have a little small mother vineyard there. But the history here, North Carolina was a leading wine state before Prohibition. So there were 25 operating wineries here in the state, and we sort of been lucky enough to jump in on the tail end of that and help to grow this business again.
Jonathan, one of the interesting things as we talk about the history, it's not always been an easy pull for folks in the wine business and for wine in general. And part of that was some legislative issues that impacted the sale of wine. I don't know whether you want to talk about that a bit, but North Carolina not only claimed to be the native state for Scuppernong itself, but just trying to get that out and discovering the wine over the possibilities of the wine, but the legislative issues that your dad, I know, fought the battle with to just kind of get equity and equality in developing and selling wine.
Yes, actually, even before my dad, years ago, our state passed Prohibition in 1909. 10 years before the rest of the nation, and because of that, our wine industry pretty much died. So when our country became wet again in 1933, our state decided that we were going to leave it up to the individual counties to become wet or dry. And out of the 100 individual counties, 2 of them became wet. 98 decided to stay dry. And so we had two wineries to open up from that. Of course, they quickly closed down because of how everything happened with legislators. The North Carolina Bible Belt region just didn't want to bring wine back in. A winery out of New York called Canandaigua came down here and started promoting grape growing, and when they did, a lot of farmers, including our father decided to grow grapes for Canandaigua, and when the price of grapes dropped, we were forced to open up a winery to save our investment. Well, our father at that time faced the fact that, how can we sell wine? We're making a product and competing against much bigger companies. So they basically came to us and said, look, what can we do to help you out? And at that time, a winery couldn't have a tasting room where they actually tasted wine and also be able to sell it in the same location. So he asked our father, what would you like to do? And first thing we want to do is be able to taste. And so that was passed to allow us to be able to sample wine back in 1977. They also put a tax on out-of-state wine, didn't have one on North Carolina wine.
Tax break.
Tax break, excuse me. Tax rate.
It was an unfair balance, really.
Yeah, balance to help promote us. And that lasted up until 84. But in 1984, that tax break ended, and when that did, it pretty much, and Dave remembers this much better than I did. They
started eating a lot of bologna sandwiches.
And soup.
Yeah. And I mean, we're talking tough times, and I think what I want to get across to our viewers and listeners is that it's not always been an easy business. It's been really a battle, and you guys as children saw that and saw what your father and your uncle went through just to try to get through the survivability of it.
You started the winery out with no knowledge at all, no money. So actually, as kids, we stomped grapes. We didn't tell anybody we were stomping the grapes, but we stomped the grapes and licked the labels and made 20 cases the very first year. And my dad worked day and night. I mean, it was just a pure struggle. And luckily, we did get this tax break. And with that tax break, Dad took the product to the stores, and it was a little bit cheaper, so people started buying it. And we grew our business up from 20 cases to about 44,000 cases by 1984. And then in 1984, we lost that tax advantage, and of course, we went broke.
We'll be back in a moment. We're talking with David and Jonathan Fussell on We Should Know. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You're watching We Should Know. We're coming to you live on Tuesdays, 2:30 to 3:30. On Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at 7 p.m., Starvision TV. It's a reprint of the Sampson Weekly newspaper. Shout out to all those folks that listen to us and mentions us on the radio, other programs out there. The Boogie Shoes Radio Network on Saturday afternoon with Robert Stroud talks about our show and some of our guests. We appreciate Robert for doing that. Don Smith with the Country Store. Wayne Weeks with the Gospel Show each and every day. We appreciate that. Wayne, also Tommy the Fly, you hear him in the afternoon, and the guys that come on in the morning, the threesome every morning on WCLN 1170 radio. I'm excited to have with us today Jonathan and David Fussell, Duplin Winery. We're talking about the history. Let's get back to that. I think it's just important because back during the period of time we were talking about, you mentioned something I think is so important, and I was reading where the first grapes, when you were actually doing the bottling, and you mentioned this, but it was stomped grapes. A lot of folks think, well, that's just kind of a myth and that kind of thing. But in reality, that's the way grapes, the juice was derived from the grapes. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So
we want to make sure, though, people know we use machines now.
Yeah, exactly.
But even
back then, you washed your feet good, right?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Okay.
Well, the ladies didn't have to.
Exactly.
But you just stomp the grapes, lick the labels, use duct tape on every little thing you possibly could. The winery was actually first built in a building that was just a plain warehouse with a little office, and it wasn't designed with floor drains that we have now. They just came in with a little saw and cut out some concrete, and actually back then we didn't have all the water quality problems and different things like that, so the water just drained right to the ditch, and we went on with that. But it was a makeshift, learn as you go business.
This was in the early to mid 70s, right?
Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. I mean, we got a little more sophisticated as we started selling some wine with that tax break actually we really did go all out, I guess you would say, in 1983. We still had this tax break. Things were looking good. My dad went out and borrowed $1 million to build a brand new winery. So if you come to the visitor center, you can also take a tour through the winery. But the visitor center is the old winery. The new winery, of course, he borrowed $1 million, and just as soon as he did, the very next year, the fancy lawyers came down with a little skinny ties and said, "Hey, look, this tax break is unconstitutional." And we fought it, and they fought it like crazy, and it went back and forth.
It's a dark time, though.
And well, when we lost it, our sales dropped from 44,000 cases down to about 18,000 cases in 1 year. The very next year, we were down to about 11, and by 1990, we were down to 4. Dad lost his house.
And you're talking carrying a huge debt too. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean the bank's got to be paid, and all the good equipment that we have purchased, we sold. The most unfortunate thing is that we had 27 good associates, and it dropped down to a 2-person operation. My mom and a lady named Ann Fair, who still works with us. They just really sold old wine to people driving down to Carolina Beach off 117, and my dad went back to teaching school. Of course, as I said, lost his house. The winery was for sale, but nobody wanted to buy a business that you couldn't make any money.
Was there any future, Jonathan, when you looked at that and what David's talking about, did you, that time, were you old enough to know whether did you see any future? Was it just total bleak that maybe there wouldn't be a wine business?
No. When I got ready to go to college, I'll never forget this. My dad said, "Look," he said, "you're going to school." He said, "Don't plan on coming back."
Because there's nothing there.
There was nothing there, and so our grandfather had just died and had left a little bit of money for inheritance, and he said, "Here's some money we're putting in an account for you to help pay for school." And that was it. There wasn't really any future. And I remember in '93, Dave and I think Michael Judge, and which was a winemaker at the time, and Jonathan Murphy and my father sitting around talking about selling the winery, and they'll say, what are we going to do? We're either going to go give up, or we're just going to go hard at it. And that's what they decided to do, is go hard at it. And things sort of changed, and our father in '94 had this great idea of starting dinner shows, events, and our grandfather thought it was the worst idea possibly could do, but he had a dream of bringing folks to the winery, and a reason to do that, and that was by doing these dinner shows and events.
Now, your grandfather just recently passed away in the past few years. He was 97, I think.
He was. I think a lot of your audience, especially you were talking about the women that listen to him in cars, they probably known our grandfather. Okay. He loved women. He did. He loved women.
Well, I think that's a good thing. I mean, from where I see it,
I love women too, but I don't love them that much.
Everybody could give a thumbs up here.
That's right.
So when we look at that history, though, part of the history of winemaking in North Carolina, folks need to understand it's a huge history because there's a number of wineries throughout North Carolina. I know Biltmore was doing a lot with wines back in the 70s in the western part of the state and developing. But the wine that Duplin Winery got into, that your dad and your uncle and others got into, was again that unique wine, that Scuppernong, that muscadine grape. You had a lot. There's actually two schools. There's the vintology school, that's the wine making part of it, and then there's the school that looks at maybe that's the actual grapevines itself, and then the other part, the enology is the I'm maybe not saying that word correctly, but that's the actual wine making. Is that correct?
You know what? You use a mighty fancy word.
So
I don't know exactly what you said.
That's good. That's
good. We were blessed, just blessed that North Carolina is the home of the best muscadine grapes in the world. And we feel like muscadine grapes make the best sweet wines in the whole wide world. And so you can't reproduce what we have here because of what the good Lord gave us. And one of the reasons why we really just stick with muscadine wines is simply because that's what we do best, because that's what we grow best here.
Branded that.
We branded that. And, you know, we've got unbelievable diversity in the state. When you were talking about Biltmore opening up, we have the western side of the state where the vinifera grapes like the Chardonnay, the Cabernet, the Merlot, the wines where you drink with your little pinky out, they grow pretty well there.
Sophistication.
That's right. And they use the big words that you were using. And then down here we just like to enjoy what we're doing and enjoy what we're drinking, and we try to keep things in our wines just as simple as we possibly can.
Back to basics. Now let's talk about it in the sense though of schooling and education. Both you guys are college graduates, but there's winemaking schools here with the community college system. I know there's one up at Surrey, and right there in Duplin County, right here, our neighbor. Yep. Has a that's a 2-year program, isn't it?
Correct. We were actually very, very fortunate. So Surrey, several years ago, were the first school to actually open up a viticulture school and an enology school, and they were basically the Yadkin Valley area was growing very, very rapidly, and they wanted to cater to those folks. In our area, we're very lucky. In our own county, James Sprunt came up to us with the same idea. They said, "Look, they're doing it on that part of the state. We need to do the same thing with muscadines," and their focus was on muscadines. So we've been having a viticulture school now for a little bit more than 6 years, and it's a 2-year program. And out of that school, we've had 3 wineries to open up from it, and so. You know, it has done a great job to service our community, and out of our company, we actually have had 7 associates to go to school there and take classes.
Well, how hard? I mean, and I know we're talking about it kind of humorously about stomping the grapes and all that kind of thing, but we've come a long way. Now we're talking about 2-year degree in education and you know, name technology on how to do this. Is it hard to get and retain people that understands the science of making wine?
I think most of our guys, though, you know, they're homegrown folks, so they like staying here, and so we don't have a lot of turnover. They probably want some of us fired, but you know, but we have a great team. We've got 92 associates, and they work really hard and bright and smart, and that's really what Duplin is all about now. We started off as a family business and still kind of family run, but we've got some people that have just made our business or Duplin their business, and so we look after those guys too. We try to, and
do you feel like they have a passion for what they do?
Oh, yeah, they got some fire in their belly.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of sense that if you're around them.
Oh, yeah.
And for folks that's been down there that's listening today, they probably recognize that as well. I mean, it's not like you walk into some businesses and, you know, without calling any names, and you just kind of feel like, I might not know what's going on around here more than they do. You don't get that sense there.
Well, we like to hug necks. You know, when they walk in, we're going to hug a neck.
It's like the front porch kind of mentality.
That's it. That's
front porch, and you're a welcome guest. When you look at the process of where you were and where you are now, is that dynamic sustainable over time? Do you see challenges up the road?
We were just talking about that on the ride on here.
Yeah, I was listening to you.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You know, the wineries are ever-changing businesses. You talked about wineries opening up already. There's 112 wineries in North Carolina now, and at one time there was 1 winery opening up per month, and that's a lot more competition and a lot more places for people to visit. And so what we try to do is keep the mentality of, you know, of building a relationship when they come to see us. We want to treat everybody the way they do. It is, you know, our goal is, if you know, as the folks come by, is to try to build that relationship.
Well, hold that thought. We're going to come back and continue this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us. We're having a great discussion with Jonathan and David Fussell talking about wineries in North Carolina and Duplin Wineries. We'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We're having a lively discussion today talking about wines, winery, vineyards, talking with Jonathan and David Fussell of Duplin Wineries. Just a great conversation. Guys, again, thank you for being here and taking time. I know you've got a lot going on. I mean, everything from tours right on around. Jonathan, I want to switch back to you. Before we went to break, we were talking about 112 wineries here in North Carolina. It seems like it continue to grow, but throughout the state. It's a big production thing for the Office of Tourism in the state. Folks like to talk about that, encouraging people to visit North Carolina and visit the wineries. Also, the conversation we were having was about some of the challenges in the future. It is a huge challenge. Continue your discussion on that. I think that was an important piece we need to get in.
I think the biggest thing is if folks, a lot of people think of a winery as a manufacturing operation. We're actually an entertainment destination, and our job is to entertain guests. The wine business itself in North Carolina is over $1 billion industry, and the reason why that's so important to our state is because of the economics, the taxes that it brings in, but also the other jobs that it creates. We affect, the wine business does, the hotels and the restaurants in the area because we're bringing guests in. You know, I serve on tourism board for Duplin County, and our main goal is to bring heads to beds. And so when we're looking at stuff at our company, at the winery, we're not only looking at how we can bring folks into the winery itself, but we look at also how can we bring in more heads to beds for our area. So we partner up a lot with our local hotels and do wine packages where folks can come and have a free shuttle service to the winery and have a great meal and a great dinner show or event, and then that hotel picks them back up and takes them back to the winery, and they get to save $50 during that process per couple. So we do a lot of that in order teaming up to try to advance tourism in our area.
So, David, basically what I hear Jonathan saying is you're basically developing a culture in the area here of understanding not only the wine itself, but understanding the relationship, the relaxation part, just the environment of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, we really just want to make sure that our visitors also enjoy themselves, so they'll want to come back. And you know, we were talking about challenges and different things like that with, you know, it is a challenge for us to all work together as a community to try to get these things done, and also work within, you know, the state laws that govern how you should do business and different things like that, and the taxation and different things. The number of wineries that we have that we compete against here in the state, and we sort of now have been kind of fortunate where we compete against some of the bigger boys too. You know, the Gallos of the world, and they make, you know, huge brands and millions of cases. Actually, sometimes we buy glass from the winery themselves because they own their own glass companies. But it's just been something that we really look at what we do best, and we try to say, what can we do best? What can we do best? And we can be the best at having great Southern hospitality, making great wines at an affordable price, and really entertaining and showing people, you know, a great time, and so that's what we focus on.
You mentioned the big boys of the world in the wine industry, but let's back up a minute. Now Duplin Winery is getting a big track in that area, because now, correct me here on this, but aren't you guys kind of in the top 5? And let's talk about that as far as distribution.
Now, look, one day I got you know, one of these reports. Yeah. You know, the biggest wineries in America.
Yeah, yeah.
And I looked up there, and Duplin was 28th.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, you know, and I bowed up a little bit, and I said, man, we're doing pretty daggone. Yeah. And then I divided us into number 1 890 times. So, you know, there's a big difference in what I'm talking about, the big boys and the little boys. But we are very, very fortunate. We have 49 families now that grow grapes for us here in eastern North Carolina.
And they're strewn throughout the counties here. A lot of those in Sampson, a lot of them in probably Cumberland and Bladen and different counties that surround us here.
Most of them are within 75 miles. I think we have 7 growers here in Sampson County, probably about 14 or 15 in Bladen County. But they're all within about 75 miles of Rose Hill, so that, you know, we can get the grapes to us a little bit with less freight charges and different things like that. And we can also, more importantly, get the grapes to us after they pick quickly. And we don't want our grapes to take a long ride to get to Rose Hill.
Well, a question, and I'm trying to get a perspective here. You look back at 1976, about 35,000 gallons of wine produced, according to historical data here. Looking at it now, just so we can get a parallel here, what kind of production are we looking at with Duplin? And you've mentioned already that you're in different stores, Kroger, you're in the Walmarts, you're in Sam's Club. Know that because I've seen it there. You're in a lot of places. Even you've been recognized as far away as some country called Spain. I think it's got something to do with wine. You guys have been recognized over there as well. So I want to put it in perspective here. The volume you're doing now compared to then, what are we talking about? Oh, it ain't got to be exact figures, guys. Come on. Although I know, David, you probably know exactly.
Let's say a little bit more than 1 million gallons now. Yeah. But now we work hard at making 1 million gallons. Okay? And it's a business where we've been very fortunate to find people who have visited us in Rose Hill. They've gone back to Ohio. They've asked for our wines in Ohio, and we've been able to go into Meijer's and other stores that I've never even heard of, Giant Eagle, different things like that. And we're beating the bush. Right now we're opening up in Florida pretty good. Winn-Dixie is giving us all the stores down there in Florida. Walmart's putting us down there. Sweet Bay, a division of Food Line, is putting us in all the Sweet Bay stores. I just had an email before we got in here. I was tickled to death to see that the Sweet Bay buyer was putting us in down there. But it's a deal where you go down to Miami and a country boy hits down there, and those folks don't understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, you got to have an interpreter.
Yeah, I could go to New York, and they don't understand what I'm saying.
They're Spanish and then they're Southern.
That's right.
What's he saying? Okay, we'll interpret it.
That's right.
I understand. So, okay, when we look at that and we think about the dynamic of what's going on here, are you at a point, and I know all businesses reach that, we're talking about 1 million plus gallons, that's the annual production of wine. So is there a breaking point that you have got to think about what your dad was thinking about a long time ago with the $1 million investment? Are you at that point that you've got to think?
Did you ride with us today?
I got people, okay? I got people. I don't just research, I investigate.
Yeah, you got to think in a car and listen to us.
So tell us how are we sitting? Because listen, here's the thing, and I think most of our listeners know this very well. How goes business? That's how goes society, how goes our culture, how goes people's jobs. So tell us what we're looking at here and what should we expect in the future.
I don't know what to expect in the future. I just know that we're very, very fortunate to have grown to the point that we are now. The problem that is there now is we got to continue to do that. We have 92 folks that do a great job working with us, and we got 49 contract growers and eight handshake growers that are counting on us to continue to go out and grow and to help support their families.
Right, purchase their grapes and turn those grapes in.
They want to be paid more.
That's right. And they all want to be, everybody wants to grow. So it's our responsibility is to continue to go after and to put our very best face forward and to work as hard as we can to try to be good to everybody.
Well, David, you guys have already surpassed the local growers, and thank God for those local growers. But you've already surpassed that. You're buying grapes from other states already. Yeah. And when I say buying, we're not talking about 2 or 3 bushels. We're talking about tons, as in 2,000.
That's right. That's more of a necessity thing because
you don't have a choice.
Yeah, with the hurricanes and different things like that affect eastern North Carolina or late frost and different things like that. So we tried to diversify a little bit to dodge some of these bullets. And so we do have a vineyard in 20 miles south of Meridian, Mississippi. We have a couple of vineyards in the Panhandle of Florida and one in Georgia, and those grapes are picked and because it's important for us to press our grapes within 24 hours after the time they're picked. We have a pressing station in Defuniat Springs, Florida, where we press those grapes extract all the delicious juice off of them, chill that juice down, and then ship it to us here in Rose Hill, and that's where we do our fermentation.
Is that the same kind of grape? Or is
that same kind, but they taste a little different.
A little bit different because of, I guess, I use the term kind of the wine snobs say you can taste the environment and all the things. You hear this a lot on the wine shows.
Fancy
man.
Look at the socks out there.
Check him out. So when we look at that and we look at the development of it, the next step is obviously going to be one either bigger or more finite in doing what you're doing. That's the two decisions. It seems that you're at that break point now.
Yes, we are. We really have come to a point where we are sort of established in South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and we're not as new, as exciting. Our wines taste better now than they did 5 years ago. Yeah. But and our prices are pretty good. But we want to keep this excitement rolling, and so we're opening up new markets, and of course never losing sight of where we began. And we're going to stay in North Carolina, and that's our base. And at least those people understand what we're saying.
Absolutely, and that's important. Quick comment. How about exports? What are you looking at as exports?
We've been approached at least 3 or 4 times a month about going into China or Hong Kong or different things like that. And right now we're at a point where we need to have a customer base or people who know what they're wanting to buy and the right people to sell our product. And we haven't quite found that channel yet.
Stay with us. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Jonathan and David Fussell. We're talking about winemaking in North Carolina. Stay with us. We'll be back in 1 moment. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Exciting show today. Thank you for being with us. Kind of our last segment coming up. We encourage you to stay tuned to us every Tuesday, 2:30 to 3:30, WCLN Radio, Star Vision Channel 16, 7 p.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Catch us on Star Vision TV. Also, there's a summation of the Sampson Weekly newspaper. We're uploaded now to YouTube. You can pick us up there. Just type in We Should Know EDU. If you'd like to send us and continue to send us your emails and suggestions, the address is it's called We Should Know EDU at gmail.com. That's We Should Know EDU at gmail.com. Continue to send us those suggestions and comments on shows. Guys, thank you for being with us. Jonathan and David Fussell. Busy people, always something going on. Jonathan, you mentioned in the entertainment business. I think the wine business itself is fascinating, and as we just kind of talked about a bit on our break, it impacts lives everywhere, and every time you turn around there's something else going on, and it's not necessarily just wine. I want to touch on two things rather quickly. One of the things I want to just approach this because you do have some people out there, and I've known you guys for some time, and obviously I've known your father, so I know you to be very devout Christians and church people and go to church. Why do you think there's this, by a very few people, there's this kind of pushback? Well, I don't know, this wine stuff is just not. Let's touch on that. I mean, folks are thinking it, so we got to talk about it.
Well, I think it's a good thing we were Methodist.
There you go. No, we can talk about the Baptist.
Hey, look, when Dad and my uncle, and my grandfather said, "Let's start a winery," man, I'm telling you, my grandmother, Mama Lib, had a fit.
Yeah.
And so she said, "Well, there's one thing you're gonna make sure you do. You do not sell wine on Sundays."
There you go.
So we're kind of like the Chick-fil-A of the wine business.
There you go.
Even though that would be a great tourist day for us, we're closed on Sundays. But Jesus' first miracle. Mm-hmm. My dad was a lay minister before he got into the wine business.
Absolutely.
My father was the assistant headmaster at Harold's Christian Academy before he got into the wine business. Luckily for us too, we've had we've had an influx of Northerners who come down, mm-hmm. who shared different philosophies and different ways of life, and it relaxed some of the what is it? The word I'm looking for is stigmatization
Yeah,
or whatever
yeah.
about having a glass of wine.
Yeah.
But what's important too is, we failed to mention about one of the major things that really got us kick-started was the health benefits of drinking a glass of wine.
And that one word is what?
Resveratrol.
Resveratrol is the word. But one of the things you were talking about your father, and I think folks need to understand too, is that not only was he I guess a lay minister or what have you, but if you visit Duplin Wineries, your theater, the lunch area there and everything, you'll see signs around very quick Christian quotes and that kind of thing. So there's a sense of a deep spirit here. You want to talk about that, John?
I guess the best way to explain it to you, JW, is I'll never forget when I was 18 years old, 17, we bought some property, and we were going to plant a vineyard there. And I remember my father showing us the property and, being proud that, this is the first time we ever bought property in my time, because we were just starting to just sort of grow, a little bit. I was like, Dad, can you believe what we just bought and what are we going to be able to do? And he just looked at me and said, son, we don't own this property. And I looked down and I said, what are you talking about? He said, God does. And he's allowing us to be able to use it, so let's use it to his will and make him proud. And I think that's sort of what he has taught Dave and Pat and myself and all of the folks at the winery is, that believing God is number one, family's number two, and then work's number three. And he has done that by, telling us the most important thing is to treat folks good. And so a lot of folks do come into the winery, and some folks it may bother that they see, God be the glory on as they're coming into winery, and some folks say it makes them proud. We're just proud that we're able to do things and we try to make God proud also.
Part of a deep Southern tradition is belief and faith in Christianity. And I think I read one quote that said, Christian faith that helped them overcome what seemed insurmountable odds. And I think that covers it. So talk about resveratrol. That's an interesting word. It's been around for some time, but it has something to do with cardiovascular health. Tell us about that. You have some products that you sell for that as well.
You want to do it? You want me to do it?
Okay.
Take a shot.
Go ahead.
Oldest always gets it.
Resveratrol,
Yeah.
so neat. Back in 1995, they had a study in France and said if you drink a glass of red wine, you have 42% less heart disease and 38% less cancer. And they tested wine, what's in wine, and they looked and they found a little phenolic compound called resveratrol. And so they started searching all over the world for resveratrol. And Campbell University came down and said, a good old Baptist school from Bush Creek,
there you go.
Came down and said, hey, look, we'd love to test muscadine wines for resveratrol because this is the only place in the whole wide world you can find it. So, of course, I said, well, look, if there's no resveratrol in it, please don't let anybody know because we're finally starting to sell some wine.
Exactly.
But they came back after a series of tests, not only there, but Tufts University up in Boston, and came back showing that muscadine wines had 7 times more of this resveratrol in it. And I said, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Why is it? And so they really started doing a lot of studies. There's 3 different types of grapes grown in the world. Vitis vinifera, those are the Chardonnay, Merlot, Cabernet. They're native to Europe. And, of course, they've grafted them to native muscadine roots, and now they flourish over in Napa Valley. There's Vitis lambrusca, and if you're a good old Methodist boy like me, you have Concord grape juice for communion, Concord, Niagara, Catawba. These are all Vitis lambrusca grapes. And then there's Vitis rotundifolia, nicknamed muscadine, that grow here in the southeast. Well, the other grape growing regions other than here in the southeastern United States are kind of nice and, not as hot, not as humid. Heat and humidity support a lot of fungal disease. So our grapes are under a great deal more stress. And just as the good Lord helps us by letting us make natural antibodies whenever we're trying to fight our sicknesses, he does the same things to grapes, and due to the huge amount of stress put on our grapes, they have the ability of producing more and more of these antioxidants and phenolic compounds, and that's why muscadine grapes are so good for you. But that news got put on, some of the outlets and the news, and we started seeing some folks living. My grandfather lived to be 97.
That's some research right
That's
there.
right. That's
so,
right.
And you guys sell that in peel form. If somebody wants to take it, it's the crushed up grape seeds themselves.
Yes.
You sell that in peel form, and if folks do not want to drink the alcohol content of wine, you sell also grape juice that has that resveratrol in it, that it's not alcohol content.
I will tell you this: we have a tremendous amount of folks that give us testimonies after testimonies, especially taking the grapeseed capsule and how it lowered their cholesterol. And these folks, they don't want the alcohol, but they do want the benefits.
Right.
So if for that reason, you definitely want to take the grapeseed capsule. One thing I do want to tell you, though, JW, just from research I found out, it does not cause any hair growth.
Hey, you can prove that.
I can prove that.
You're a test person. Well, there goes my thought on that one. Okay. So let's talk about quickly then what's coming up at Duplin Wineries that we need to know about now. You got a lot of shows coming up, got a lot of events. You do tours, you do ocean cruises, you name it. So what have we got coming up that you need folks to know about?
Well, on my end, and I'll let Dave cover his side of the business, on our end, we're looking for any way we can get to be able to have a person come spend a day with us or spend some time with us to be able to create a relationship with. So we do dinner shows. We do 38 shows a year. Coming up is we have a comedy show next month. We have our annual Grape Stomp Festival, which I'd love to invite all your listeners to come see us and stomp some grapes and drink some wine not made out of those grapes that have been stomped on. We have Christmas shows. We do it all. We do concerts in our vineyard. Whatever we can do to invite folks to come. We also have a fantastic restaurant called the Bistro, great to eat. And I'll let Dave cover the.
He gets to have all the fun.
There you go. You're out finding new markets.
That's right.
Give us about a minute wrap up here.
Number one thing is we're working hard at always trying to improve what we're making. We have some new wines that we've developed throughout the years, and those wines will be coming to market soon. And of course, in other areas, we're opening up new markets and different things like that. But the number one thing that I think we'd love to say though today is thank everybody out there that gives us their support and just let them know that I don't think there's a. We know they had an opportunity to buy another bottle of wine besides ours, and we're so grateful that they bought ours. And we appreciate their business very, very much.
Wrap up.
Yeah, that's it. I know how Dave a while ago was talking about folks drink their wine with their pinky out. Yeah. You can drink ours in a solo cup. So it's all right. It doesn't matter. Just have fun.
Any way you put it down. Well, I think what we've heard today is the sweet, the cool, and the easy. The whole part of it. I know that's one of your big advertising slogans, and encourage folks to come out. Give us a telephone number in case somebody wants to call you.
It's 800
okay.
774 9634. That number again is 800-774-9634. I'm sorry.
DuplinWinery.com.
DuplinWinery.com.
DuplinWinery.com. The number is 800-774-9634 or DuplinWinery.com. That takes them to the website. They can get anything there, order anything there. They can call and talk to a live person, set up an event. You do anything from shows, you name it, rolling around. I want to thank you for being with us today. Great job. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to We Should Know. Thank you for being with us, talking about vineyards and winery. We look forward to seeing you again next week on the radio.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question or comment regarding this or any episode, please send your email questions and or comments to jwsimmonsedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday afternoon beginning at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.